I was just a lad, nearly 22, neither good nor bad, just a kid like you. And now I'm lost, too late.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to NBD. This is episode 8, and I am here with my friend Sebastian.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about creating art when you don't have an audience. And I'm going to incorporate a little bit more of Bob Dylan's words in this episode than in other episodes. But instead of his song lyrics, I'm going to be referencing his book, Bob Dylan Chronicles, Volume 1, because he talks a lot about his early career and how he got into it, and I feel like that's very relevant to our topic. There is no Volume 2. If you're looking for it, he wrote a book and he labeled it Volume 1, and he didn't write Volume 2, but I feel like that's just very...
It feels like a Bob Dylan thing.
Bob Dylan of him. And, you know, I might say a quote, and we might have something to say about it, and we might not, but either way, the reason I started a podcast is because I love words, and I love reading words and writing words, and obviously I love saying words. And if it's a quote that I noted and wrote down, it's because it resonated with me. So even if I don't have something to say about it, I still just kind of want to put it out there. But anyways, so just to get into it, for some context, what kind of art do you create?
I guess I'm a filmmaker. I guess that's what I mean, like you said, we're making art with very limited audience, at least, so it does feel weird to be like, I'm a filmmaker, when like barely anyone is seeing stuff. But I went to school for filmmaking, so I guess I'm a filmmaker, and I'd say a comedian.
All right. You might call yourself a comedian. I wouldn't categorize you like that, but
I mean, I don't do stand up.
No, I was just
you're saying
making a joke that you're not very funny.
Well, women can't make jokes. Should I say that on the podcast?
Yes, you should. That way I can maybe get some...
My goal is to get canceled before I'm famous.
You know, I think that's a great idea. Then you don't have to worry about it later on.
Exactly. People just know what they're getting.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of creative people, even if they might have one main thing, they're creative in a lot of ways. So do you do anything else creative?
I don't know. I mean...
You make music.
That's true, I do. I forgot about that. That'll be interesting, having the music that I made for this.
Oh, yeah.
And then me talking.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, this is the cover artist for our theme song.
Yeah, no, I do music. Barely any of it is released. And I really only released it for myself. Like, the music I mainly just do for me.
So, were you creative since childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I was. I have artsy liberal parents, and so it was just, I don't know, my mom paints and knits and writes, and my dad is an English major who writes and makes music, and so it was just kind of like growing up with that.
So when did you know that you were going to pursue creativity as like a life goal / career?
I mean, I guess high school was when that happened. I mean, there were a few instances. Like, I grew up playing Little League baseball. I loved playing baseball. And then I got to high school and was like doing the weird like spring training thing that like anyone can join. So I wasn't like on the team yet, but like I was playing with them. And the coach called a kid the F slur. And I was like, that's not okay. And so I stopped baseball, like basically then, and then joined theater, where I was like, I'll never get called that.
That's a great origin story.
Yeah, like that was like one instance. And then like in high school, I was like, I could maybe see myself being a teacher. And then I did this program in high school where I like taught kids math. Like I taught 5th graders math. And I just didn't really enjoy that. And so I was like, yeah, this probably isn't for me. Then I started making videos, and then I was like, I'm going to study filmmaking.
Okay, wow. So did you ever feel, was there ever a moment or time where you felt scared? Sorry, my cat is just scratching away.
Pepper Jake.
Was there ever a time where you were like nervous to make that decision to pursue a creative career? And does that feeling persist?
Not really. I mean, my I don't know. I feel like my parents were always just like, do what makes you happy. Like, obviously, like, you need to survive, but do what you can to be happy. Like, it doesn't, like, a 6-figure salary isn't like important or anything. And so, like, I wasn't really nervous going into it. I had a train of thought, and that train left the station.
So now, do you ever feel scared or anxious? Like, is this a like do you ever have those moments where you're like, why am I pursuing this? Like, this is like getting me nowhere. Like, do you ever get scared like that?
No, I don't think I do, because I still have my supportive family that is like helping me, and I'm living a very privileged life right now. And so like I don't feel like I need to feel nervous. Like, there are times where I'm just like, I wish I was doing more. Like, I moved to Cincinnati for filmmaking, right, which is not something you hear every day. So there are times where I'm just like, people that I know like have gone other places and they're, you know, already assistant camera for this like little TV show, and I'm like, that's really cool, but I shouldn't compare myself. Like, I have to, like, it's the comparing yourself to other people thing.
It never helps.
And so it's just like, I'm doing my own thing. I like where I am right now, and I know it's going to get. I get impatient, maybe. I think impatient. Yeah.
Okay, that'll help, because at first I was like, this might be going in a different direction than I had thought. Because I have a very different perspective. Even though I would say my parents are also supportive of my goals, they're not involved in my goals. They don't know anything about it. And like, they're just like, you can do it because you can do it. And whereas your parents are literally kind of doing it alongside of you. But I get scared all the time and freak out because I think I really like the idea of success, and I feel scared when I don't feel successful. And when you're an artist, you're not successful for a long time, and you have to kind of just keep working hard and keep working towards your goals without any sort of validation or encouragement from others sometimes. And you kind of just have to hold on to faith in yourself. And I feel like that can be really hard, that maybe not everyone on a traditional career path, it's not something that they have to do. And there is this, I feel like Bob Dylan is very, he's very confident in himself. And it seems like he has always been pretty confident in himself, which,
I guess that's what you have to do to get a Nobel Peace Prize.
I guess so. And I feel like most people going into creative fields definitely have moments of uncertainty and maybe discouragement in themselves. But I think, that's the thing that you need to keep going. And one thing that he said, he said, I had a heightened sense of awareness, was set in my ways, impractical, and a visionary to boot. My mind was strong like a trap, and I didn't need any guarantee of validity. And I feel like that's just kind of what you need when you're pursuing a career as an artist, in order to keep going, is that you need to believe in yourself so much. And, you know, you can't expect people to say you're good now or later. I think someone said something, it was about in reference to like stand-up comedy. Oh, it was from the documentary Comedian. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
Well, it's with Jerry Seinfeld, and someone, it's a guy that I should know his name, but I don't know his name, is like talking about how like there's so many other careers like his friends are doing, and they're making money now, and like he could be doing that, but he's doing comedy and he's not sure of it. And Seinfeld is just like, yeah, well, that's just a different thing. Like, this is comedy, and even though it's gonna take a while, like that payoff is way more worth it than that. And the thing about pursuing art is, when you're someone who's pursuing it, you're pursuing it because that's the only thing for you.
Yeah.
Like, there wouldn't really be a point to life for you if it weren't for being an artist. And so I feel like that's a thing that a lot of people don't think about. I have been in acting since I was little, which I mentioned a million times. And so the schools I went to and my parents like always like believed in my ability to pursue acting, which is not something that a lot of people believe is even a possibility. And so it's kind of easy for me to feel like having a creative career is realistic, just because it's like, well, I started out as an actor, so really anything's possible. And what I find is that a lot of people who like are around our age and are pursuing more traditional career paths, it's not necessarily because they don't enjoy art or they aren't creative. Like, a lot of them just don't even know that having a career in creativity is an option. Like, whether that's the way they were raised or not, like, they just don't even, like, obviously, like, and I guess that's something else I wanted to talk about is, like, if you don't decide to make it your main career or your main goal and you, like, create art on the side, like, that art is just as valid as art that, and like you said, you have a lot of music, but it's not released. But it still exists. And it's still, like, worth your time. And the thing about like I said, bless you.
Thank you.
Like, being an artist and it being because there's nothing else you would want to do. This is another quote from Bob Dylan. Sometimes you just want to do things yourself. Sometimes you just want to do things your way, want to see for yourself what lies behind the misty curtain. You want to say something about strange things that have happened to you, strange things you have seen. You have to know and understand something and go past the vernacular. And I feel like that's the root of being an artist, is just you have something to say that someone else hasn't said before or hasn't said in the way you want to say it.
Yeah. And I should say, like, because you said discouragement earlier, or like nervousness. I've just been thinking about that more. Weirdly, the times that I feel most discouraged or nervous is when I'm actively making something. Because, like, we have a short film that's being submitted to, like, festivals right now. And obviously, like, I'm, like, stressed about that. I'm just like, I hope they get in. But I know, like, the finished project I'm pretty happy with. But it was, like, when we were filming it, I was talking about this. I was nervous. I was like, I have no idea if this is good. Because I was like, I like the writing. I know I like the shots and the acting and everything. But, like, I don't know if it's going to come together. And, like, that was the most nervous, I guess, that I get, is, like, not when it's done, but when we're still doing it.
I've never thought about it that way. And that's actually a really good point. I do tend to feel most hopeless about my artistic career when I'm literally making a project and I'm like, and that's the thing about being an artist, is when you create something, a project, you are looking at it so much all the time. And there's no way for you to defamiliarize yourself with it, so you can't even tell the quality. And you kind of wonder, sometimes I look at something I've made and I'm just like, am I even saying anything at all? I have no idea, because it's my perspective, obviously. Yeah, and I want to talk about because so early I'm talking about, like, the early stages of a career in art, because, well, frankly, that's the only stage we're familiar with. And there's another musician, Patti Smith, who is also very inspired by Bob Dylan, and there were our friends. And another comment that she makes early in one of her books about her early career is like, it's like, I had to hold on to the belief that I was an artist. And I feel like that's a big thing. Like, you just have to, kind of in the beginning, it's like you don't even know if you can confidently call yourself an artist. You just kind of have to, like, I like looking at art. I like consuming art, and I want to make my own. So, like, I think that makes me an artist. But anyways, reading her book, reading Bob Dylan's book, and then I also recently read Ava Gardner, an actress's book. Those are all obviously, like, mid-20th century. Their, like, rise to fame was a lot different than how it is now. And I honestly sometimes feel very frustrated because I like to read a lot of books like that. Of course, I like to read the old ones. And it's really frustrating because, like, Ava Gardner just, like, shows up in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, it was like back in the day, it was just like you're on a plane and then this guy's like, say, dame, you'd look good on the film screens, eh? Ever think about moving to LA? And it's just like, okay, I guess she's an Oscar winner now.
Exactly. And, like, that's the whole thing with Ava Gardner is she wasn't, for a long time, like, she really had no acting ability when she was in movies.
Yeah.
And then also she, for a long time, she doesn't even really believe in her ability to be an actor. Like, she was just pretty and MGM, you know,
Yeah.
wanted her face there. And which, like, I mean, you could call it unfair or pretty privilege, whatever you want to call it. But obviously it was a different time. But she learns how to be an actor literally on the job, and by on the job I mean in, like, I don't know how much they were spending then, but like $1 million films.
Yeah.
She's learning how to be an actress, which nowadays, like, you gotta spend $1 million in acting training to be an extra in some commercial, like. And then of course Bob Dylan just, you know, is playing his music in New York, and then, you know, like, there's this part in Patti Smith's book where she's like reading poetry somewhere, and then on the way out she just runs into Jimi Hendrix, and like and you know, it's just so frustrating because that's not how things are now. And something that's awesome about modern day and also kind of sucks is that it is more acceptable to pursue a career in that, so everyone's doing it.
And like, not to go into a weird like anti-social media tangent or something, but it's just like, because of social media, the market is so saturated. Just everyone is doing it, everyone is posting it, and I don't have a TikTok, but I know like people are somehow TikTok famous, but you could never have heard of them before.
Yes.
Or like YouTuber, like I watch YouTubers who I'm like, these people are racking in like 500,000 views a video, but no one's ever heard of them before. Like, it
used to be like, to be an influencer, like, you had to have like you were kind of basically like, I'm gonna step down from celebrity.
Yeah.
But now it's become like a thing, just like any other industry, where it can be at any level.
Yeah, and there are weird niches, right? Like, it's like just I don't know, some weird example of just like people who are really into mushrooms, right? Maybe there's a mushroom influencer where someone was like, you gotta try these mushrooms, and somehow those mushroom sales like skyrocket.
Yeah, no, there's like tea, there's literally any tiny knitting, any tiny little hobby you could think of has like, and they have a bunch of followers, and it's weird. I don't know, because you never know who's making money and who's not making money.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you need to make money. But like, yeah, anyone can do it now, which is great, but it also makes it hard and like, I listen to a million podcasts, and like, a joke I've been hearing a lot in podcasts where it's like don't start a podcast, like everyone else.
Everyone has one.
Yeah. Everyone has a podcast, and it's true. It's like everyone has a podcast, and you know, do you ever wish? You probably don't have this wish, but I wish sometimes that I was older when YouTube like started and became a thing.
It's
and
like
then
how Bo Burnham, like, the timed it right, and he's also super talented, obviously.
Right.
But like, if Bo Burnham started now, the odds of him or like being seen are much smaller.
Yeah, it's harder. It's definitely harder to stand out.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. I don't know why I'm talking about this like I have experience with it, but I guess the reason I'm talking about it is because it was a misconception I had as well. You think that being successful in like the arts is as easy as just like getting noticed by someone and like being put on, and then you have that, but it's not. This is such a weird example. I won't even know if you'll know what I'm talking about, and I don't know why this is the only example I can come to my brain, but do you know Cody Ko?
I know the name.
Okay, well, anyways, for everyone else, he did this video where he was like, he had a series where him and Noel react to videos that they think are cringe, and they reacted to this guy, Matty Smokes, and he vapes and like makes stupid commentary, and he's just like, whatever, and they were making fun of him, but at the same time, like, just an observation I made is that he could have easily blown up off of that, because the main creator had such a big audience, and they were making fun of him, yes, but he was like a semi-attractive like teenager, like likable enough where like he could have blown up after that, but he didn't like work towards it, and he didn't keep making content. But basically my point is, it's not just as easy as being noticed once. Like, you still have to keep working, and it's still hard. But that's actually the next thing I want to talk about, which is that the thing that I hate about being an artist, like I said, I want to be successful. But the thing that sucks about being an artist is most people's view of it is that success in art equals fame.
Yeah. Maggie, my best friend, and I have been like semi-joking / talking about it recently, of like, when we make it medium, right? Like, we don't want to make it big, but we would like to be medium, just so that, because with the kind of art we make, like, you need an audience to like have money, and it's not like money is something that like I just need an abundance of. Like, I grew up super poor. It's never something that like I've super been around.
But if you want to spend all your time making art, you need
funding
to making money off.
And so we're saying we want to make it medium, just so like we have enough to make that art. Like, and it's just weird to think about, especially like right now when we're just like creating our new company, which also everyone else is doing. Of like, any guy with a camera is just like, I guess I'll make a production company, and so we have to find like our way to stick out in that weird little niche of just like, here's why we should make a video for you or whatever. And
it comes back with the double-edged sword where it's more possible now to make it medium, but it's also harder.
Yeah.
And I agree. I like that phrase, making it medium, and that is also what I want to do, because I remember one of the reasons I quit acting is because like I realized I never wanted to be famous. Not to say that I would at all, but I at that time thought like in order to be successful I had to be famous, and I was like, I don't want to be famous, like that's terrible. And yeah, I don't like the idea of fame, but I love the idea of being really, really successful.
Yeah.
And it seems like, even though it's not the case, it seems like you need to be famous in order to be considered successful by your, maybe sometimes your family or your friends or your peers. And I feel like, again, we're surrounded by a lot of creative people, so we probably don't have this as much, but I still kind of feel it, but maybe it's just me projecting my own insecurities, where you like want to tell people what you do, but you kind of feel like that they'll just dismiss it.
Yeah.
Because it's not real.
Because like at the beginning of this podcast, I was like hesitant to say I'm a filmmaker. Like, I'm still weirdly hesitant about it. My dad.
Like, you mean like 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, I was just like, I guess I'm a filmmaker. No, but my dad was actually the one who was like, just tell people you're a filmmaker. Because like, I don't know, when you tell people who aren't in the industry that you're a filmmaker, they're like, oh, what have you worked on? And I'm like, nothing, right? Like I've made my own short films that the most views one of them has gotten is like not even 900 views, right? But then it's just like, people are like, well, what have you worked on? What movies have you been on? I'm like, I'm from Indiana. Like 5 movies have ever been made. I mean, more than 5, obviously, but like.
Yeah, it's not a big filming location.
Yeah, so it's just like, I am a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But it does feel weird to say that.
Yeah, definitely. And you didn't start doing film in education until college, right?
I mean, like, sorry. There were media classes in my high school that I took, and so like I started making videos in high school, and like I did the thing of I started making little silly video game videos just because that's what I could do. I didn't have a camera like really until the second and end of high school, so all I could really do was like screen grab video games. Like I would make videos there. But,
Oh
like,
my God. Do you still have them?
yeah. I don't think they're listed on my channel, but they are like on the channel, so like I can still send them to people or whatever. And then I technically have 7 unedited episodes of a video game series that I never finished, and so it's just like, I don't know, like, 'cause people like back to the what have you made? I made video game content, right? And that's another thing of like I don't want to be a content creator, which a lot of like production is leaning of like the, and they said it was a mistake, but like Warner Brothers with their stupid new Max streaming instead of HBO Max, they were like film creators instead of director, editor, or actor or whatever. They were just like film creators. Martin Scorsese. And it's like Scorsese isn't like a creator, right? He is
Right.
a director and a writer, and it's very specific things of just like don't how would you, and it's just
Yeah, I went to a performing arts high school, and they taught me to like never say like I was aspiring to be an actress. Like
Yeah.
you act, you are an actress. And so yeah, I have gotten to the point where I'm confident enough to
and I think that does help with confidence, right? Like if like in college my professors were like, you're filmmakers, right, instead of you guys are students,
right.
then I would be like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. But now I'm just like, I think I'm just kind of like a guy trying to make films, I guess. And then my dad was like, no, you're a filmmaker. So
It's funny because I just realized now that that really hasn't transferred over to being a producer, because I guess I think of a producer as a less abstract concept, and so I don't consider I do, but I don't. Like I always say I'm aspiring to be a producer, but I am technically producing this.
You're producing this, yeah.
And honestly, any other project I've worked on, I have produced. Another thing about social media, and I agree, like I don't want to have to be a content creator. Like I don't like, but at the same time, something that I kind of have noticed for a long time, but have taken more seriously recently, begrudgingly, is that, and not just for creative endeavors, but especially for creative careers, I've realized that social media is kind of becoming LinkedIn.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And even though I don't think you have to be active on social media to be successful in a creative career, I definitely have been seeing how it helps, especially, in comedy, in stand-up comedy. I feel like you have to be on there for networking, to know about shows, to get booked. Also, like, the clips of, like, the crowd work that people do. And something that I have kind of realized is that as much as I hate them, Instagram Reels are kind of like free advertising, because they can come up on anyone's page, even if they're not following you, which is like something that people hate about Instagram, and I hate it too. But it's like, it's kind of a little hack to be getting your content to people who don't follow you already. But I agree. I hate social media. It's not something I'm natural at or good at.
Oh, I'm so bad at it.
And yeah, it seems like the people who build success are often able to do that you think of all the people who are started out as like making vines just for fun, and now they're like respected millionaires, you know? And so I hate social media, but it's also a great tool.
Yeah. It's also because you said it was like LinkedIn. It's also weird to me that like LinkedIn is like transitioning also into just like a regular social media platform, which is kind of weird. Like I saw someone the other day that I'm connected with. There's just like, I watched this movie and it was really good, and it's like
on LinkedIn,
and like obviously like I think it's a bit different as filmmaker creatives or whatever that like the people you're connected with are probably also movie makers and lovers and whatever, but it is still weird just like on LinkedIn, instead of being like, I got this new job, I'm starting this job, it's just like, I like Super Mario. Like it's interesting how it like just kind of like is forming into like one.
It is. And it also means that your personality is something that's going to be, or at least the appearance of your personality is something that's going to be like perceived when you're trying to like get jobs or work with people, which is a good thing, I think, for likable people like us. But also it's just bizarre and strange. And it makes you, for me, I like social media for like connecting with friends that I never talk to because life is crazy. And then I'm like, well, I don't know if I should post this because like maybe this is too casual, and if anyone searches for me, like they'll see this.
Yeah.
But at first I was also really embarrassed about posting things about my art because it's like no one cares about this. Like,
and it's just like you don't want to annoy them, right? Like,
yeah.
And like we did this. They didn't do it last year, but the audio company Rode does this like little short film competition thing, and there's an audience like vote award. And so, like, we made one, and then I just was like, I know I need to post about it on social media to, like, get people to vote for it, but it's also just, like, I don't want to, like, just annoy them so much that they're just, like, I don't want anything. Like, it's... Yes.
Feeling like you're annoying people it's really hard. And, like, for this, I try and post consistently because I know that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But also, I'm like... yeah, I'm posting this again. I know you, and like, you know, at first, like people who I knew or my friends would like it and like show their support. And I appreciated that, of course. And that validation, of course, is helpful. And then like the more I post, you know, people don't, like they just look at it, which is fine. But I'm just like, do you hate me? Like, am I bothering you by like, I know you know about this. Okay, so this is going to be a fun, little writing prompt.
Okay.
This is a quote again by Patti Smith, and it asks some questions, and I was thinking maybe we could try to answer them. I wondered, what was the point of creating art? For whom? Are we animating God? Are we talking to ourselves? And what was the ultimate goal? I craved honesty, yet found dishonesty in myself. Why commit to art? For self-realization or for art itself? It seemed indulgent to add to the glut unless one offered illumination. All right, that's a lot, so let's break it down with just the beginning. I wondered what the point of creating art is what she's asking. So, in your own words, what do you think is the point of creating art? Generally, not you. Just in general, the point of creating art.
Generally, without sounding pretentious.
Yes, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult.
I guess like I don't know. Humans have never been good at communication, right? I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. So I think it's a way to express ourselves and how we're feeling about really anything in ways that a lot of people probably won't even understand. So it's another way of not communicating well, I guess. But it's just like, yeah, because this is something that I kind of struggle with also, of just like, I know people who like, they make art. They really make art. And like the stuff I make is still art, but it's just like a lot of the times I'm just like, I think this would be good. I think this would be like, this is a good message. I like this. And I don't like really like this is going to sound wrong. I don't put a lot of thought into it. I do. I put so much thought into it, but it's not like I'm just like, here's what this means.
It's
here's
not
what
like
this means.
the red curtains mean that he's angry.
Right, yeah, like it's nothing like that, but I know people who like really do that. So I don't know. It's just like art in general is just a way to express ourselves, I guess. I don't know.
I think self-expression is a really good purpose of art. I guess it's kind of also what I would say the point of art is to process the world.
Okay, yeah.
So like when you make art, it's you just processing what you see around you, and then when you're consuming art, you get to see another person's perspective of the world.
I feel like it could also be like showing like what you want to see in the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
because the world is not a great place. There's a lot of bad in this world, but there's so much content that like I'm trying to help like also make of just like positivity. Like the biggest example right now is Ted Lasso. Like that its show is just the happiest show I've ever seen, but they still make it really good content. And so I think it's just like they are trying to make something that helps people rather than Barry, which is an incredibly dark show that is more just like, here's how we're seeing the world, right?
And I feel like a lot of
Hi, Pepperjack.
art nowadays, and I guess in this context I'm talking about films and TV shows, it does seem like it's made to evoke fear and excitement in humans. Maybe humans feel bored. Maybe it kind of stems back to like the fact that like, you know, we don't have to wake up every day and like fight for our lives, like survive. So maybe since we have all these things at our fingertips, we need that excitement, and in the form of fear. And yeah, I agree with you. I watched the first 2 episodes, couldn't keep going, but that's my own problems. But I agree that it's nice that there are shows like Ted Lasso that do want to make people happy, because it seems like all the good stuff, quote unquote good, that like gets the awards is the stuff that's the worst stuff.
Well, and that's the thing that like I don't know if you've noticed, but it's just like as a comedian or like a filmmaker that makes comedy, is people don't view it as like art, right? Like it's just like, oh, ha ha, it's art, but it's cheap, right? Like, and I think it's because people think of movies like Grown Ups, right? Where like a lot of those comedians are really talented people, but they're making just like dumb, silly things to make people have a quick laugh. But it's just like the comedy that I'm striving to make is more like thoughtful, and it's just like I just want to make people happy, but in a way that like also makes them think. And so it's like this weird line of like we're submitting to festivals and like trying to like win awards or whatever, but like if we're a comedy, we're less likely to get that just because people don't take it as seriously, I guess.
It's true. And that's another thing that I feel like it's not necessarily different, but I always feel like it's different making art when you know your audience is going to be artists versus making art, and I hate to use this word, but I also love using it. I use it all the time, is when your audience is lay people. And I just mean people who aren't artists. Like, and that can mean in
the common folk.
The common folk, yeah. And that can mean in like any, like, so say it's film, like people who aren't film people, I notice tend to, it's that time in the episode, everybody, where my foot falls asleep. People who aren't in film, they don't know about the technicalities of it. So I'm not saying either way is better. In fact, I kind of prefer when it's common folk talking about movies, because it's like, they don't, like, their definition of good is going to be different than other people's definition of good. And it goes back to that whole thing where like a lot of people don't want to watch movies where you have to watch it 5 times to understand what it means, and some people just want to like enjoy a story that is what it is on the surface, and you can look more into it or you cannot. And so I guess I just want to ask you, do you have any thoughts about like when your audience is artists versus when it's not?
Yeah, I mean, like, I want just people to like it. I don't know if I've really broken it down by like artists. But I do think I'm probably more annoyed with how artists feel about my projects, because even when I don't want them to, they'll break it down or whatever. Like, I made, it's basically a sketch, but we call it a short film, called The Armor. And it's just like sort of about like in video game universe, but following the NPCs more than like a player or something. And I showed it to one of my professors. I was just like, like, pretty proud of this. And then he was like, okay, so you broke the 180-degree rule. And I'm just like, but it wasn't like, I don't know. It's just like, it's not really what I was like going for. And it, like, I know like you're not supposed to break rules or whatever, but like it was done in a way that I don't think was confusing. Like when I showed it to like my grandparents, they were like, no, like that was a good, we weren't confused just because the camera moved to one side. Like we still knew the location, right? Like
it's something that only another filmmaker would notice.
Yeah.
And you know what, that used to bother me a lot when I was being graded on art is they tell you not to break the rules, but then they tell you about how all these great movements and all these great artists came about because they broke the rules. Mm-hmm. And normally what an instructor will say if you complain or point that out is they'll say, yeah, well, you're still learning, so you have to know the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
And I do think that's fair, but also something I'm really glad you brought that up, because a quote from Bob Dylan, he's talking about Hank Williams, which is one of his biggest inspirations, which is also why the theme song for the show is a Hank Williams song and not a Bob Dylan song. And also because Hank Williams' music is
free. And Bob Dylan would sue you.
And Bob Dylan would sue me. Well, if I would be,
I think you would be medium. I think if Bob Dylan sues you, that's pretty medium.
Yes, I wish Bob Dylan would sue me. But anyways, he's talking about Hank Williams, and he says he breaks all the rules except that of having something to say. And like I said earlier, that's what I feel like being an artist is just having something that you want to say. And that is annoying about I also feel when an artist who's like at my same level shares their art with me as like acknowledging me as an artist, I kind of feel the need to break it down to them to like prove to them that I'm like either understanding it or that I'm like not. I always feel kind of scared to be like, oh my God, I liked it. Like I feel like I won't have their respect if I just say like it's good. Yeah. Because sometimes, I mean, it's annoying when people say it's good if you want their feedback and they just say, oh, I like it, it's good. I don't know if you had this in film school.
No, yeah.
But I feel like there's a lot of people who kind of decide to do film in college, for example, and they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, and they just kind of think it's fun, and then you realize they're not taking it seriously at all. Yeah. And it's really frustrating. And there's always that feedback time. I remember in every class, like all my group members would always be like, oh my God, you give such great feedback. Not to toot my own horn, I'm just really good at criticizing people. But I would get really frustrated because people would just say, this is good. And it's like, that's not helpful at all. But yeah, I always feel like when someone shows me their art, I have to be like, oh, I like how you used the red curtain to show that he was feeling this emotion.
Yeah, and that's like, I guess like when I like get feedback from like artists, I care less about, and I guess this probably means, I don't know, maybe I'm more of a writer. I don't know. I do like to say I'm a storyteller, I guess, more than anything else, because it's like if someone starts breaking down the technical aspects of my film, I'm just like, okay, like that's fine, I guess, but like I am not professional. I'm limited on what equipment I have. It's just like, let's focus on the story and like how everything, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. There's something else I was gonna say, but I keep forgetting because I have a cat on me. So.
Yes, you're dealing with a lot right now. Okay, well, let's keep breaking down this quote. Yeah. Okay. She says, "For whom?" As in, for whom are we creating art? Are we animating God? Are we talking to ourselves? And I feel like that's a really interesting thought to think about, because I at first I wanted to answer the who is art for. But that's interesting, this thought of talking to ourselves. Yeah. When making art, because that is kind of, honestly, when you don't like maybe release your art, if you just do it and keep it to yourself, or if you do it with the intention of keeping it to yourself, even it is kind of like you're talking to yourself. But I don't know. I always feel like there's a third party whenever I'm making art, and it's not necessarily human.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess like with my music specifically, like when I don't release things and it is just for me, it's still like, yeah, I get what you're saying. It's just like you're making it. Fucker.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay. He's just stabbing me right now and then bit me.
I should have brought the spray bottle.
No, he's fine cuddling. It's just I
Okay.
needed to move his paw. Oh, you distracted me, you little jerk.
Are we talking to ourselves?
Yeah.
Oh, you said when you make music.
Yeah, like
that
I
you
don't feel like I'm
release.
talking to myself. Like I feel like it is. I don't know, because I guess like a lot of things with like songs, like you're writing about. Like at least for me, like a lot of my songs, I'm writing about other people or like experiences, and so it's just like. All right.
He's done.
He's done. That's fine. I guess it's like when you have, I don't know, sort of a diary, or like those people who like write letters to people without sending them. It's just sort of like a way of like thinking it through and getting it out without really sharing that with anybody.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna keep talking.
No, you're okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Again, I think it just comes back to art being something like the reason that you're an artist is because you wouldn't be happy doing anything else, and you have to enjoy making art for the intrinsic value that it has.
Yeah.
If you do, and I think that this is a problem that a lot of people don't understand because being a creator is way more accessible nowadays, is that it is a job and it is work, and if you are doing it to be famous, you're not going to be able to like maintain that and keep that up, and you're not going to be able to create good work. Like you have to want to make art
like, I don't
because
know
you want to make art.
how genuine it can be if you're just doing it to be famous. Like it's a very vain thing to do, of just like, I want people to know about my existence, so I guess this is how I'm gonna make that happen. Like it's just, I don't know, it's filmmaking is like the really like the one thing that like I've been like, oh, this is what I love doing. Like I'm not really an aggressive person. I'm pretty passive. Like if things happen that like kind of bother me, I'm like, oh well, that sucks, that's too bad. But like filmmaking is like really when I speak up for myself, of just like, no, like I really think it should be this way. I've just like worked on a short film in college where like I didn't want to shoot in a studio, but the producers were like, yeah, but it's just easier and it's free, and like we'll have to go around asking like businesses. I'm like, great, let's do it. Like what's the problem? They'll say no. Like, oh, okay. Like that's, otherwise, like if I have to like go talk to a business about something, I'm just like, hey, I need this, blah blah blah. But if it's for my like a film or whatever, I'm just like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I feel like I understand that group, that I'm not a passive person, but I do understand that feeling of when you're working on a project of kind of, you're suddenly like, you're not trying to take control or steer the ship, but it just happens. And like, and that also reminds me of my best friend Maddie. She used to really bother me in high school because she didn't do her work for her like classes, and she would like find whatever way to get by without actually just doing the work. But when it came to theater classes or anything with acting, like she's an extremely hard worker, and she's a hard worker, but only if it's something that she cares about and likes.
No, that's definitely how I am. Because like I feel like I'm a smart person, but like if it's just something I don't give a shit about, like I just don't have the drive to do it, which like probably isn't the best trait to have, but it is just like, if I don't care, then why would I put effort into it? Like my college wasn't just like a specific film program where you only take film classes. It was a liberal arts degree, so I had to take other classes, and I had to take this silly class on chimpanzees. And
the whole class was about chimpanzees.
Yeah.
That actually sounds great, and I hate science.
No, so I actually love science. I think chimpanzees are really cool, but I was at college for filmmaking, so I was just like, I am going to do the bare minimum in this class, because like I wanted to focus on my actual filmmaking classes. So it's just like,
yeah, and that is, I don't know, it's something I'm grateful for in college, and also something that I hate. Like, I'm glad that they make us take other classes, especially because I don't believe that people, when at the usual age people go to college, the typical age, I should say, you are going to know what you want to do. So I do think it's important to explore other things, but it is really frustrating when you're trying to start your career and figure out your life, and you're trying to put all your focus into this thing, and they're making you learn about pre-calculus. Like, you shouldn't need to, you don't need, who uses pre-calculus? I know people always made the joke
Just
growing
math people,
up.
pretty much.
Right. People
Past algebra, it's like
it's like literally algebra 1, because people always made the joke
a little bit of geometry
of like, we're not gonna need this, like we have calculators, like, and I knew that we wouldn't need it, but like sometimes I think back on it and I'm like, no, we could have stopped in like 8th grade.
Yeah, I mean obviously this has nothing to do with filmmaking, but like math, like, and that kind of like stuff specifically, is like people do forget pretty quickly. Like in high school I was in the advanced math classes, and then when I went back and taught 5th graders math, and it was just like basic like fractions, like multiplying, adding, dividing fractions, I had to refresh myself, because a lot of like the advanced math is just like variables and word problems. So it's like you can stop probably at a basic math, but you should still practice that basic math just to make sure like it's in your head. Because like I also know plenty of people who can't like do tip for like at a restaurant, like they can't figure that out in their head, and I'm just like, that is pretty basic math.
I think that's basic, and I look down on people for it, but at the same time I do, it's true, they can just use their phones, they can use, and that's fine, if that's, as long as you can figure it out. Anyways, we
back to film,
back to
or art, or
I didn't expect it to go towards math, but just a little thought there. I liked what you said about you don't see how art can be genuine if you're just doing it to be famous. I agree. And I think that's one of the most important parts of art is genuinity. Is that the word?
Sure.
Genuineness or whatever. And in this quote, Patti Smith says, "I craved honesty, yet found dishonesty." And that, I feel like that's really frustrating, because sometimes you're trying to be productive with your creativity, and so you try and sit down and like force yourself to do it, and nothing comes out, and it's just bad. And doesn't that just suck?
Yeah, that was something I was thinking about earlier, of just like, anytime I force myself to make stuff, I'm just like, this is okay. Like, there's been like one time, it was like, well, it was one project I made in a class that I was really proud. And it was just like, you're given a prompt in your filmmaking class, and then you go make the video. And I made it, and then the class was like, I just don't think it was very obvious, like the premise or whatever. And I was just like, you're idiots, which like makes me feel like bad about myself, because I don't want to think that I'm better than other people or smarter than other people, but it's just like this specific thing, I was like, okay. But then every other time where I've just been like, I have to make myself make art, I've just been like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. But if it's something that comes more naturally, or just like the thing I was talking about earlier, the armor with the video game thing, we wrote that for the competition, but it wasn't like we really like forced ourselves. Like, we had this prop, and we were like, what can we do with this prop? And we were just like spitballing ideas, and like it came out. But it wasn't like I'm going to write something. But it's also very annoying, because while I am a creative person, I'm constantly thinking of new ideas, building on those ideas, and like finding like the mental energy and the motivation to like really build on those ideas to make something solid doesn't happen very often. And so it's just like, I have so many scripts that I have started that I know I'm going to finish, and they're just slowly being progressed on, but it's just like, this will take ages at this rate. And
okay, I have like 4 tangents to go off of on what you just said, so I'm going to try and remember all of them. First of all, that is something that's really hard about being an artist, is you can make something and say you do really believe in it, and you believe that it's good, and then someone tells you it's shit. It sucks, because you kind of have to do that balance of being like, okay, do I take their criticism and like see that maybe I'm only seeing it this way, or do I, because some, there are all those stories of people, of like famous artists who like were told that their work sucked, but it was actually amazing, and it just wasn't appreciated at the time. But also sometimes people are right, and you just didn't make something as great as you wanted to, as you thought it was.
Yeah.
And so it's because art is subjective. One of the best parts about it, it's also something that sucks, is because you kind of, it's not black and white. You can't figure out if you did. And as an artist who's an A-type personality, it's really frustrating because I can't say, oh, I did a good job or not, because I have no idea. And that's the same thing with sitting down to create something and like forcing yourself. Is I always want to set a goal for how much work I'm going to get done in a day, and then I want to complete it and check it off.
Yeah.
But that's not how art works. You can't just sometimes there's days where you just don't have a creative thought in your brain. And then another thing is that what you said about you were spitballing ideas with people about what you can do with whatever prop. As someone who is an individual worker, it's really frustrating because in art, the best art is honestly made through collaboration. And it really is like two minds are better than one. Like, you need all those perspectives. Any art that you see on a big scale, i.e. TV shows, movies, music, whatever, had so many brains being put into it, and they work together to create like a product. And I think that's something that's hard also about doing art in school, is you're kind of expected to do everything by yourself, and you kind of have to, because no one else is going to care as much about your idea as you are. And isn't it so weird how, like, in film school, for example, they teach you about all these different positions on a film crew and how every person is so important, and then they're like, okay, your final assignment is to create a film by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough because like I know that they just want you to like have the experience of doing everything, which like I do like, because like the short films we make are, I mean, they're just so few people are working on it, and so it's just like everyone is doing everything, and like I do think that is fun. But I've also worked on sets where you do just have people doing this one specific thing, and it's like that's pretty nice too, because then you can really focus on that thing and make it as good as you can.
And something is less likely to go unseen because everyone's focusing on their specific thing, so they can look at all the possible rooms, all the possible possibilities for error.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then another thing is, and I'm sure you experience this, I'm sure every artist experiences this imposter syndrome, is the thing about art is once you create a piece of art, maybe it's really good, so good. And then after, like, you kind of show people and everyone's like, oh my God, this is so good. And then you're like, I'm never going to be able to make something again. Yeah. Like, that's how I feel a lot with comedy. Like, anytime I do have a good set, I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And I get in my car and I'm like, yes, this was great. And then I'm like, I don't have any more jokes. I'm all out.
Yeah.
That's all I had. And I feel like I'll never be able to create a good piece of work again. And sometimes it might take time. And that's also something I feel bad about, is like any famous artist is put under so much criticism. And like, if a director who releases like Ari Aster, he did Hereditary and Midsommar, and like they were so good and everyone loved them, and then he did Beau is Afraid, and I mean, I didn't enjoy it, but like a lot of people were like, oh, this sucks. And I mean, honestly, I don't feel bad. He's making plenty of money, and he doesn't need outward exterior validation anyway. But like, it sucks to be like told, like, it's kind of like, it kind of makes it like all your past successes don't matter because you can't keep producing, you know?
I mean, yeah, I feel like you hear about that like all the time, of just like people, or like they make some like really good independent films, and then big studios like, let's get this new voice, and then it's just a flop, and then that person like never really works again, because it's just like you have to keep proving yourself, which is like kind of why another reason of like making it medium is people care less, right? Like if you make one flop, then you can just go on and try to make some more things, and it's just like, because it won't be a $1 billion flop, right? It's just like a little flop.
That's why it's really nice, again, to want to make art for the intrinsic value it has to offer of making art, like your music, like you probably, when you're working on it, like time goes by and you don't even notice it because you just enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, for example, this podcast, like, sometimes, like, I'll say things and I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I should say that in case blah, blah hears. And then I'm like, no one's listening to this. Yeah. But the thing is, I realized I genuinely enjoy having conversations with people. And even though sometimes it stresses me out, I genuinely enjoy, like, editing and stuff. And so I think hobbies are important too. I think in general in life, for everyone, artist or not, it's important to have things you do for yourself that have nothing to do with your career, that don't make you a better person, that are just things you enjoy. And so if that's all this is, then that's all this is, and that's fine. On the topic of filmmakers, like successful ones, I wonder if this annoys you as well. So it's hard. Art is hard because it's subjective and it can be good or bad depending on who. I personally hate when people say something is good or bad when it's art, even though sometimes, you know, I do see things and I'm like, that's shit. But I personally hate like award shows and like Emmys and stuff. I don't care about them. I don't watch them because I hate how there's just this group of people that decides what are the best movies and actors.
No, typically I don't care about any of that. I will say this last one I did care about just because I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I thought that story was really interesting of like just how it was made and who made it and everyone who was in it. So like that one I watched because I was just like, I hope that they do win because all of these people who are in this will go on to make more things. Like the dad in that one, Ki Hui Kwan, who we like haven't really seen in decades because no one wanted him in any films because he was an Asian guy. Like seeing him come back as like as an adult was just really great, and now like he's gonna have a further career in acting, which I think is great because he loves acting. And so like this was the one time where I was like, yeah, I want to watch the Oscars, and then also Brendan Fraser. But
did you see The Whale?
I haven't seen The Whale. I just wanted him to win because I like Brendan Fraser. But no, typically I agree. I like awards. I don't love, but at the same time, as someone who has a film, like I mean, I've submitted to festivals before and like gotten into festivals, but like we have what I think is a pretty good short film right now submitted to festivals that have award ceremonies and awards with that. Like at that point, like I would love to win an award because if I win these smaller awards, then like it helps me be like, look, I'm an award-winning filmmaker. Like I can actually, like I know what I'm doing. I can make things. But like those I do find different. Like the smaller festivals or even like South by. Like I find those a little bit different because I don't know. It's promoting like films. And like Oscars are mainly there for ratings and how many people are watching so that the network can make money. And then
and of course then like with the bigger like the Oscars and stuff, there's like different biases and I don't know who has power and I agree that it's different in that smaller scale. And I also agree even with like the Oscars and stuff that it's nice to have them for people who are really talented to get that recognition and perhaps even if they're stars, like validation that they're doing a good job. And so I do understand that, and as a person who thrives on like success, like I said, and acknowledgement and validation, like I obviously would like I like it's just when I think of art and the concept of art, it makes me like I don't like the idea of things being labeled as good and bad, especially when
commercializes the art.
And honestly, that just goes into the whole thing about I wish that I didn't even need to make money with my art and that I could just live and make my art. And but that's not. It's just the way society is set up. But I always whenever people like find out, lay people, when they find out that I like films, they always like ask me about the Oscars and stuff, and I'm like, I really could not care less about what they say, because I also tend to not like things that other that are like the mainstream things.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a subconscious like I'm not like other girls thing, but also I just like have like a very like specific taste, and it just makes me mad that it's because also the only movies that are considered are like feature films made by big studios.
Yeah, it's like we're I think getting away from that
That's
a little
not
bit.
good.
No, we shouldn't eat that. But like I do think we're getting a little bit away from that, just because people are like, stop just giving it to the same people making these films every time. Like, find new voices. But no, I agree. A lot of the times it is just the same people.
Well, I have just a few more quotes I want to put out there before we say goodbye. One is about I guess the idea of pursuing like understanding that a creative career is a possibility. You just have to believe in yourself. And also so it dawned on me that I might have to change my inner thought patterns, that I would have to start believing in possibilities that I wouldn't have allowed before, that I had been closing my creativity down to a very narrow, controllable scale, that things had become too familiar and I might have to disorientate myself. And I feel like that's a really powerful statement about making art that is evocative and new and something. Oh my God, Pepperjack, stop. Is like you have to at first a lot of the art you make as a new artist is gonna have to be like almost replications of art that you like. And you kind of just have to like, in order to make something unique, you have to, I don't want to use the same word he uses, but like defamiliarize yourself with the rules too, the rules of art, what art looks like, and just kind of like break down all the walls of what you believed. And then I just think it's important, if you're a creator, if you're an artist, if you feel like you're like if you feel, what's the word for writer's block for anything? Is there like a general term for writer's block, or just when you feel like at a creative stall?
A mental block?
Mental block. I mean, whatever. Anyways, Bob Dylan said, creativity has much to do with experience, observation, and imagination. And if any one of those key elements is missing, it doesn't work. So I feel like when you are in that mental stall, you can kind of like think about what am I missing out on? Experience, observation, imagination, like, and you can kind of push yourself to expand your practice of each of those things. Well, before we go, is there any other final comments you want to make about art or making art without an audience or being a creator?
I don't know. I mean, I've said a lot, and I don't normally say this much, so.
You don't. I've not heard you say that much, and I still probably was talking most of the time. I talk a lot, which is why I started a podcast.
No, that makes sense. I can talk a lot. It's just like, I don't know. This has nothing to do with art and filmmaking at this point of it. It's just like, I don't want to interrupt people. And so if like there are other people talking, I'm just like, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Especially like in group settings, I'm usually just like, yeah.
That's a good quality, and I'm sure it can hold you back. But one thing that I've learned from editing these podcasts is that I have to learn how to not interrupt people, which I've always known. And I also have always, in acting, this was a big problem. I talk really fast. And when I try and make little clips for my reels, I have to like be really fast with my cuts
Yeah.
because I just run into the next sentence. And I forgot to think about that before starting this episode. So I'm sure I'm going to have that problem again. And if you have listened to all the episodes or you are listening right now, thank you so much for just sticking with me. I know my voice is sometimes annoying.
It's just the worst.
Thank you. I talk over people and I talk really quickly. And, you know, this is all a learning journey for me.
Yeah.
For the 1 to 2 to possibly even 3 people that are listening,
you had like 48 views on on the one with Maddie.
Okay. Is there any work that you want to plug?
I don't know. I mean, you can check out our YouTube channel, which is Virtual Cocktail. And then we have a short film that isn't released right now because it's in the festival market, and there's a good chance it won't be released until next year even. But then just my handle is Bakasaur, so you can find me anywhere there. And then I'm also going to plug Commonwealth Sanctuary.
Yes, which is
a new event venue in Northern Kentucky, which is going to do a lot of stand-up comedy and then also like events for the community. Like, we're hoping that like the stand-up comedy can pay for events on like family-friendly events. Like Sundays we'll do like movie screenings that are free for families to come in if like they don't have anything to do or they need somewhere to take the kids or whatever. It's just like stuff like that. So check out Commonwealth Sanctuary. Come see a show where we do more things in comedy. Like our first event is actually a play. We're doing Romeo and we're not. We're hosting a different company who is doing Romeo and Juliet. But
I love, you know, I directed, no I didn't, I assistant directed Romeo and Juliet at Shakespeare in the Park once, and
that's who we're doing it with.
Okay, wow, awesome.
I believe
I'll see who did a better job. Not bad. It could be better or worse because art is subjective.
It's always moving, you know.
Exactly.
Who knows what's
Fluid.
good? Who knows what's bad?
All right. Well, thanks for getting busy being born with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Take my advice, or you'll curse the day you started rolling down that lost